Welcome back, everyone. I hope you were able to have a little bit of a break. Self-care is important. I hope you're enjoying, and maybe more important than enjoying, having many things challenge you and new ways of thinking about addressing some of the issues that we're dealing with through logotherapy. At this time, I will turn the presentation over. Dita will be introducing Gideon. As I say that, I would like to add, for some of us that have been involved in logotherapy for a number of years, when we first came to the congresses, which were held in person at the time, Gideon and Judith were two of the people that were always very welcoming, always very open, always very willing to share, and hold a very special place, I think, in the heart of many of us that have been active for a number of years. So at this time, I'll give it to Dita to be able to share a little bit.
Okay, great. Can you please take the presentation down for now, or is it okay like that? And by the way, I see that only 8 participants have come. Shall we wait a little bit or not? Charles?
No, they're on the other side. So we are all together 8 here. So please introduce Gideon.
Okay. So it's a great honor for me to be introducing Mr. Gideon Millul on this occasion as a featured speaker. And I'm going to use this opportunity to give a tribute also to his late wife, Judith Millul, who has been so very dear to us. And it is a little bit like Cynthia was already saying, it's a little bit impossible to differentiate between Gideon and Judith. And even though Judith has actually left us for eternity, as Gideon puts it, she's still present with us all the time. And therefore, my introduction about Gideon will be intermingled all the time with Judith, because they contributed to the work of logotherapy in Israel as well as in the world for so many years, both together, and it's almost impossible to differentiate, to distinguish, to separate between them. So perhaps I will start with some professional remarks about Gideon. He was born in Jerusalem, and he has studied history and other things as well. But later on, they together studied at the School of Adler for parents, as well as logotherapy. They studied both logotherapy with Dr. Mignon Eisenberg. And at the year of 1966, Gideon has established, with the help of Judith, the Institute or Center of Logotherapy in Israel. And he was acting as president, and Judith was helping him on his side, like always, as a chair, and as a member of the board. And later on, at 2009, when actually Gideon started with Judith and with other people like us, the younger generation, the first ever logotherapy program of the Institute of Otzmot, which he founded in 1966, as I said. The association of the Israeli the Israeli Association for Logotherapy. In 2009, upon the first graduation of our first students. And then he acted as president for all those years where when Judith acted as chair. And if you could please, Charles, put Judith's picture now on, so for all of us who remember her, first of all, you know that all of us who have been coming very often to the Dallas conferences, there was a joke going on in the corridors of the hotel, of the Marriott Hotel, that if ever anything happens to the partnership of Gideon and Judith, the whole institution of marriage would be collapsed all over the world, because there have been such a couple of incredible sensitivity and incredible collaboration in work, in advancing logotherapy and Adlerian philosophy and psychology all over the world, that that was a kind of joke going on. Now, Judith herself, she was a great educator. She was in the first place a Holocaust survivor, and she was hidden. She was hidden during the Holocaust by a wonderful family, and she kept saying all her life, I am not a forlorn child, and I am not a victim. I am navigating my life, and I am a victorious person in life. And so she was. I must tell you that Judith was absolutely a person of heart and wisdom for everyone who knew her. I must tell you that every conversation I had with her on the phone when I wanted consultation for the association or something, whenever I heard her voice, I immediately said, Judith, I love you. And then I came to my question. She was such a human being that everyone who knew her just loved her wisdom and depth. And on the grave, the family, Gideon and the family, have decided to write, here lies a person who contributed to the community and was a real human being. And I can tell you that in Yiddish, there is a word, a mensch, whoever knows it. So she was a real mensch. And she not only became close to anybody who knew her and everybody who loved her, but she gave real consultation to parents and to a special education. She was the manager of a special education school of kids, and she was very active, not only on the association that they put together, Gideon and Judith, and the Otzmot Institute that Gideon was the president of, as I said, but also in the Dutch Organization for Survivors of the Holocaust. She has been volunteering there for 25 years, and she had all kinds of other chores that she did voluntarily for the Jewish survivors, for her rights, for the rights to get compensation, etc., from the Dutch government. And well, as an educator, she was really, you could say, an artist. I heard her as a group leader, group facilitator, and she was just an artist in that, just as she was an artist in consultation. Well, Gideon also was a consultant to many, many populations, even, I believe, even before Otzmot, but when he started Otzmot together with Judith, he consulted to many, many professionals and many populations. And so I think the time is too short that I describe more and more about Judith, but I would like to say that both really dedicated their lives to spread logotherapy, both in Israel and all over the world, especially in the Dallas conferences, as well as in Vienna, in Moscow, and in Dachau. And they became quite known in logotherapy. And I must say that on the day of the unveiling of the stone of Judith, after the 30th day of her passing, Dr. Cynthia Wimberly sent her eulogy, and I read it on the grave. And Gideon was all in tears, and it was so moving. And then Gideon sang a song. He has a beautiful voice. Their mutual song that he always used to sing to her, that's called "To You and Me." So if you can now take off the picture of Judith, Charles, and I will say again that Gideon has been tremendously important in his professional activity, both in the Adlerian school together with Judith as well, and mainly in the logotherapy conferences in Israel and all over the world. He initiated the first ever Congress in logotherapy at 2015, and that was a great success. Some of you have been there. And now I would ask you, Charles, to put on the video when Dr. Barnes is congratulating Gideon for his 80th birthday. And I call it From the Balcony of Heaven, and you will immediately understand why.
Hello, Mr. President. Hello, Mr. President. This is Mr. President. If you have anybody who is also listening to my message, you and I will need to explain to them my greeting to you as Mr. President and referring to myself as Mr. President. And so when you became president, I began any telephone conversation that we had over the years by saying, hello, Mr. President. And always when you've called me here in Texas, you always start out by greeting me with, hello, Mr. President. Israel, of course, has always been very special to me and will forever be special to us in the United States of America. And I think that we have been so blessed by being able to promote the work of Viktor Frankl throughout the world. And in a recent message that I sent to you in Israel, I said that when Dr. Frankl gave me his blessing at the time we met in person for the last time in 1996, a year before his death in 97, I promised him that I would spend the remaining energies of my life helping to promote his work throughout the world. You have done so very much of that work, Gideon. The work of helping to organize the institute there in Israel. That God is watching from the balcony of heaven what his children are doing. And I would like, however presumptuous it might be, to say that you are being watched over. All you have done to help promote the work of Viktor Frankl in Israel and elsewhere in the world is being blessed by the Creator of all of us, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob indeed. You have served so generously along with your precious Judith, as you pronounce her name, and you've brought such joy and such leadership to the Viktor Frankl Institute of Logotherapy that is headquartered in the United States. I think of the many world congresses that you've come to, and even though you are approaching your 80th birthday, you have been loved by the youngest people at the Congress. And I think of the times that you and Judith and I have labored and loved the challenges that awaited us. I was so thankful when you were willing to provide leadership in organizing an association of Viktor Frankl there in Israel. And when you all became a full-fledged affiliate of the Institute headquartered in the United States, you've done a wonderful piece of work. You've been so generous with your time and with your, frankly, with your finances in helping to make this possible. Beyond that, I would like to say that when we have been on the telephone together, even with an 8-hour time difference, very often it would be midnight in Texas and 8 o'clock in the morning in Israel. And we would always end our conversations remembering that he who watches over Israel slumbers not nor sleeps. And we would always remind each other that we pray to the same God. It is to that God that I pray for you and your dear Judith to be watched over, and that your legacy there in Israel will be acknowledged and appreciated throughout the world. As you choose to retire from the office of president, you are leaving a legacy into the hands of capable, caring people. And in my heart, you and Judith will always have a very special place. We wish, as you enter a new decade of your life, that you will have an increased awareness of the legacy and the eternal gifts that your offerings and your generosity and your efforts, the gifts that you have given to mankind, gifts that will outlive you. And I thank you, perhaps at this moment, most of all, not just for your work, but for your loving friendship that will always be precious to my Dorothy and me. God bless you, Gideon, and Judith too. Goodbye, and happy, happy birthday.
Thank you very, very much. And I see Gideon's smile on his face, so that makes me very happy. And actually, you know that now from the balcony of heaven, it is not only God who watches us, but also Dr. Barnes, as well as Judith, apart from, of course, Viktor Frankl and God himself. So let us all be blessed by their watching us in this great event. And at this moment, I call Gideon to give us his beautiful presentation, Bridges of Connection. Please, Gideon, start your presentation.
I would like to thank you first for the warm words I heard here. Really warm, moving words. And I'm really excited, I must say. And thank you very much for enabling me to hear those beautiful, warm words. Thank you.
You're most welcome, Gideon, and you're very honored by the whole community of logotherapy. And we are eager to hear you now. And we remember Judith as well every moment of our lives.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I will start. From the early days of mankind up to these days, prevails the desire and wish for people, purpose and meaningful life, which, as well as we all know, brings growth and health and healing. However, we live today in a war-torn and conflict-afflicted war, evidencing that many bridges of connections are collapsing as a result of avid power leaders and destructive bloody events of killing and injuring. The reality we live in today, from the eyes of a person living in Israel, is full with events influencing our lives. Furthermore, the reality we live in even decides the fate of our lives and our being. The reality we have existential threats, terror and death, military activity, increasing violence and crime, living on a brink of war. At present, however, we are not living anymore on a brink of war. We are now in a state of war. That, after having had our 9/11, in which the Gaza Hamas launched a wicked attack on the south of Israel, firing over 5,000 rockets to our cities, devastating and putting on fire homes on their inhabitants, slaughtering horrible and brutally over 1,300 civilians, among them babies and children of different ages, women and elderly, injuring over 2,900 people in various degrees, and kidnapping some 250 people, among them babies, women, and elderly over 80. Numbers which rise as the war is advancing. Hamas executed thus crime wars, causing a humanitarian disaster in Israel, in which until now thousands of civilians had to evacuate their settlements and cities in which they lived for long. I would like to bring from Psalms some things which I think they are relevant. They hold crafty converse against thy people, and take counsel against thy treasured ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Therefore, we pray, oh my God, make them like the whirling dust as stubble before the wind, and as fire that burneth the forest, and as the flame that setteth the mountains ablaze. So pursue them with thy tempest, and affright them with thy storm. And with it, they left us no choice but fight for our freedom and existence. We are fighting now for our personal existence and being, saying yes to life, despite the flowing blind hate waves around, attempting non-stop to annihilate and destroy Israel, which revived out of the ashes of the Holocaust. And in the spirit of Churchill's speech, which he had on the 4th of June, 1940, I allow myself, we shall defend our country, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. We will carry on the struggle until in God's good time, a new world will all its power and might steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old. That reality, as a matter of fact, we live in a reality that existed before the brutal surprise attack on the Holy Saturday, October 7th, the Torah celebration day. That reality fades away now in the fog of war, but it still awaits us after the war. It will probably be different, hopefully for its betterment and improvement in the future. However, that reality, we live here, and we will come back to it probably, as said, it's the life with accidents, political polarization, cultural and social polarization, deprivation and socio-economic gaps, institutions and social distortions, and above all, incitements, hatred, and boycott from outside, including fake news. While beside all that, each one has his own personal package of problems, deficiencies, losses, and sorrows he has to face within his life circles. Still, the reality around us, which many of you still can have it as well, the incomprehensible killing, terror, civil wars in Africa and many other places in South America and so on, Ukraine-Russia war, refugee waves, fears from the future, from China expands. Where goes Europe? US is in retreat. Where goes the world? That would be the question. A reality which many of its events attributed to humans are occurring as an outcome of existential vacuum and false meaning. Existential vacuum, as all of us know, come from boredom, internal emptiness, lack of interest, chase for happiness, loss of hope, lack of initiative, and the existential vacuum resulting in the existential vacuum syndrome, which we encounter daily. We have it in aggression, violence, compulsion, terror, atrocities, addiction, starting with amusement, sex, alcohol, drugs, and depression, starting with sadness, despair, and suicide. All of them. If that is not enough, we have another reality around us. We have the storms, the warming of the globe, which causes storms, floods, fires. Well, fires, by the way, the picture over here is showing the fire which damaged badly our home 7 years ago, and the big fire in Haifa. Now volcanic eruptions, melting glaciers. Nature shows us thus its forceful, often violent, devastating, and menacing capabilities, combined sometimes with the danger of nuclear reaction, as it was in Japan. Many of the mentioned realities apply, as a matter of fact, with some variations to many people in the various countries, realities causing unrest, anxiety, and agony, all of which are intensifying rapidly the vertex of the tragic triad, which we turned it to a rhombus. The fail and guilt, pain and suffering, death and injustice. All of them, the tragic. Along with it, we are living today in an epoch of vast and rapid changes in all life fields, sometimes hard to follow, like science, medicine, communication, technology, economics, society, and politics, all of which are influencing deeply our current existence, causing sometimes the future shock, as Alvin Toffler puts it. In parallel, we are galloping forward on the runway towards growing globalization, as Anthony Gideon puts it in 2000. These events are affecting, as a matter of fact, the daily life of each person, being exposed to the more and more frequent encounter with a mixture of people from numerous cultures, beliefs, norms, and behaviors, all of which puts many people in a constant coping situation with the diversity of values, cultural gaps, and personal interpretation differences. Looking now on our being, on our personal existence, we may feel as if the skies are darkening. When feelings as if heavy clouds are coming up the horizon, covering slowly the skies, depressive and hopeless sensations may arise. We're not seeing much light at the end of the tunnel. In face of this, rises by itself the question, what can we do now? We can drop ourselves into depression, as Dr. Viktor Frankl did, expressing it in the letter to his friends, Wilhelm and Stefan Berner, on September 45, soon after being liberated from one of the Dachau's death camps, Kaufering 3, and finding out that lost his family and friends. He writes, everything is in weightless, not valid, in vain in my eyes. To everything I have a distance. Nothing can say to me anything. Nothing means. That which we had held someone up became sunk. That at present it was possible to sink deeper to groundless suffering. But we can also raise the look towards a beam of light that is still flickering and bring a turning point into being, as Viktor Frankl did, expressing it by the end of the same letter to his friends William and Stephen Berner on 14th of September. But I see now the things in a wider dimension. I see increasingly that life is so infinitely meaningful that also in suffering and even in failure must still be a meaning. Dr. Viktor Frankl, by that, lays the fundaments to what he called tragic optimism. The tragic optimism rising from the tragic triad, saying yes to life in spite of, through belief, hope, and love. Belief in human values and dignity, in implementing self-transcendence by stretching out a hand to help someone else than self. Believe that there is something to live for. And as he puts it in his book, we who lived in the concentration camps can remember the man who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. Hope. And hope is a crucial factor for survival. It is a peculiarity of man that he can only live by looking to the future. And this is his salvation in the most difficult moments of his existence, although he sometimes has to force his mind to this task. And over to love. Love is the essence of life, enrolled in the capacity which enables a person to grasp to the other human being in his very uniqueness. And the love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. Love is the salvation of man, is through love and in love. Love appears also in the Bible. In the Bible, which we can see, thou shalt love the neighbor as thyself. By the intention, don't do to your fellow man something you don't want to be done to you. That was said by old Hillel, one of the wisest who lived some 120 years before Christ, 113 before Christ. All that gives us an opportunity, aside the quick changing reality, the being expected vulnerability, and even to the possibility of loss of freedom, still to turn from victim of life to master of life, if we want. That, in accordance to the motto we generated in Frankl's spirit. In view of the said up to here, arises the feeling, I think, that connections between people and increased dialogues could lead to a better coexistence and a multi-existence on our planet, where we are but short-time visitors. Or building all of which emphasizes the vital need of building bridges of connection between more and more people. People who are confronting these basic and prevalent line of events and complex, difficult situations. By building the building bridges of connections, we can fulfill our task and mission of helping also others to find meaning in their lives, strengthen their inner forces and their coping abilities in face of the rapidly changing life situations, including life situations that cannot be changed anymore, contributing thus in navigating the personal route through the river of life and perhaps to improve life quality and coexistence. Now, when building bridges of connection, it requires us to open ourselves to the other, to the alien sometimes. Open ourselves to his culture, to understand the background of the different. That can help in approaching the other, bring him closer and help him say yes to life, if he wants, of course. But first, let us understand and see the steps that may take place on the encounter with people having another culture, maybe alien to us. Looking into the word culture, it is the sum total of the learned behaviors of a group of people which are generally considered to be of the tradition of that people and are transmitted from generation to generation. It is the commonality of language, diet, costuming, social patterns, and ethnics. So every person carries with him the cultural bag, which are the languages, tales, folks, art, dance, norms, music, their beliefs, values, customs, behavior codes, symbols, and food. Every person, he got this cultural bag from home he grew up, from society and life circles he is connected with, family, school, working place, friends, etc., and which he developed in life by himself. Now, building bridges of connections require the making of some certain meaningful steps of cross-cultural progression and intercultural adaptation processes in order to understand and approach the other and maybe the alien. Here, we can well make use of the intercultural adaptation models we adopted by the courtesy of the late Mrs. Floy Pepper. First, let us see and look on the cross-cultural progression model. At the beginning, we can see and meet the cultural encapsulation. That could be expressed by denial, repulsion, superiority, and elevation feelings, fear, uncertainty, non-listening, closure, unreadiness to create contact, and even violent actions. Next will be a cultural shock, causing a dent in the armor. That may be caused when dents and cracks in the wall of introversion start occurring, when an encounter with another culture is taking place, or when we meet people coming from another culture having a different cultural bag. From here, we have a possibility to retreat and to the stage of encapsulation if we lost courage to continue. Next step can be the risk-taking. The risk-taking, being prepared to take risks by recruiting the courage to be involved, even slowly and carefully, to see what happens. And from here, we will have the possibility to retreat to the stage of encapsulation if we don't want to continue. From here, we can proceed to the following stages, which are awareness to the existing of the diversity, understanding the beginning, which is the beginning of change of conduct, appreciation and respect, perceiving the value and beauty of differences, action, a choice to continue to the world in which is meaning, and then enhance self-esteem. The world and the self becomes enlarged as a result of the previous stages. Within the cross-cultural progression model, we can well find Viktor Frankl's three ways of finding meaning. The first is what we take from the world in terms of our experiences, values. What are we willing to listen to other voices other than from ourselves? Do we want to learn still? The stand we take towards the given situation in life. What is my attitude towards the different tunes I'm confronted with? And how do I feel about them? Am I prepared to take conscious decisions? What am I going now to do about it? And the third will be what we give to life in terms of our creative work. What are we prepared to do in order to approach other cultures or people coming from different cultures? What can I contribute to the others from my cultural bag? Am I prepared to do another thing for another people? And when building bridges of connection, we should also take into account some possibly phases which may appear during the encounter with another culture over the course of the adaptation to the reality. Phases recommended to be acquainted with, starting with idealization, criticism, nostalgia, cultural shock, and at last to the last stage of adaptation to the reality. Now, adapting here at this final stage, the ways in finding meaning, as they might be focusing on the existence, change of conduct, positive thinking, hope, taking stand, and doing. All that will bring us attached to the reality. Now, some remarks I would like to the finding meaning. The march through all the adaptation phases is not a must. We can soften, if not avoid, entering these phases and making a shortcut to the fifth important phase by taking an early decision about what am I going to do. Let us remember, not deciding is also a decision. Man cannot avoid decisions. Reality inescapably forces man to decide, as Viktor Frankl says. We try to activate early as possible the last phase of adaptation curve by making use and activating Frankl's and Fabri's ways of steps to finding meaning, and additional tools which we can lead to a meaningful life, a strengthening of the personal powers, a strengthening of the self-worth, a better coping capability with the existing reality, the feeling that life and living are worthwhile, the cognition that life quality becomes better. Now, if we look, you have a combination of the cultural adaptation forces. We brought them all together because that could give us an overlook on the steps available for reducing cultural gaps when building a bridge of connection. Besides that, is being brought hereby also a list of three stages who shows a way to multicultural growth in three levels. That stage one is similar to the encapsulation one. It's my perspective is right. Fear, rejection, denial. By saying, we are all alike. Isolation, avoiding hostility, and hostility can come out. Second stage will be a change already. What we said before, a rupture in the armor. My perspective is one of many. Interest, awareness, openness, integration, interaction, acceptance, learning about other cultures. And the third one will be the one which enlarges our world. My perspective is changing and being enhanced. Appreciation, respect, joy, enthusiasm, active thinking, transforming, internalizing, rewarding, learning from other cultures. Everything is coming up from the risk-taking to personal gain, ongoing forces. When building bridges of connection, we have to take in account also the losses and griefs people are going through, and they are coping with it in their place of residence, in the countries they live, and the political reality they experience, which affects their personal existence, being thus an important brick in building bridges of connection. We believe, therefore, that understanding phases of coping with loss, grief, and mourning can help us in being a lead towards adjustment to reality, renewal, and saying yes to life within the building of a bridge of connection. The coping of losses, which we just peeping into it, the shock, denial, separation, anger, bargaining, pain and grief, yearning, acceptance, renewal, and towards hope and meaning, saying yes to life. And by that, too, give a hand to build together bridges of connection by saying yes to life together. Before concluding this session, I think that it is important to emphasize again the fact that a bridge of communication and connection cannot be created and built one-sided only. For building a bridge of connection, two sides are needed. Two partners, at least, have to cooperate in order to build a bridge of connection. I would like to conclude here by the words of Mother Teresa, who says, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water in order to create many ripples." And with that, dear friends, I ended my session, and thank you for being with me.
Thank you very much, Gideon. As always, we learn much from you. I'm not sure, someone will have to, maybe Memda, do we have time for any questions, or is this session up?
Do have time. We don't have any questions yet. So if anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A.
Can I add something that I wanted to say before?
Yes.
Thank you, Cindy. Of course, Gideon, I also want to thank you for this incredible presentation, very, very comprehensive and interesting. But as we still have some time left for the time that was planned, I just want to add something that perhaps some of you don't know, that Viktor Frankl, when he visited in Israel, when David Gutman brought him to Israel, he had arranged a second bar mitzvah to Viktor Frankl at the synagogue of near the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. And then Viktor Frankl was immediately captured to be interviewed on the Israeli television. And then he said, on my first bar mitzvah, the rabbi there really wanted me to embark on a career of being a chazan. Chazan is the singer of the synagogue. So I wanted to tell you all that what I didn't have time before, that actually our dear Gideon is continuing the work of Viktor Frankl in another aspect, because he has become the chazan of the synagogue of the elderly home that he's living now. And I told you already that he has a beautiful voice, but he's now in charge of all the prayers, and he's singing all the Jewish prayers on all the high holidays and other holidays. So this is another way that he continues Viktor Frankl's legacy. And who knows, perhaps at the age of 88 now, after Dr. Barnes had congratulated him for the 80th birthday, perhaps he would still embark on a new career of climbing mountains like Dr. Frankl did.
I wish I would have done it.
You still have time. So this is what I wanted to still add, because we still have some more moments to share.
At 6 o'clock after the war.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Jared, any questions or?
No questions yet, but just to read from the chat, Nancy Lascano says, thanks very much for this important topic. Marshall Lewis says, congratulations. And Bernadette Southwick says, exquisite presentation of our reality and how to build bridges of connection.
Gideon, thank you again. I wish we were closer. A virtual hug. I miss you.
I hope so very much. As a matter of fact, I want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to bring a presentation. Unfortunately, if there wouldn't have been in a situation we are now, a big part of it wouldn't have been brought. But
we are tasked with facing the challenges that life puts in our way. And
yeah,
we don't get to choose them.
we are not losing hope,
No.
continuing to hope for the best as far as possible.
We've had a question come in. It says, thank you for the excellent presentation. Could you please comment on how to best ignite the openness to build bridges of connection when people remain in an encapsulated stage?
Thank you.
It's a question for you, Gideon.
What? Maybe I didn't follow.
It said, could you please comment on how to best ignite the openness to build bridges of connection when people remain in an encapsulated stage?
The question is if people can remain in an encapsulated stage.
How do we build those bridges of connection when people are in those encapsulated stage?
You know, when we build connections with other people, it doesn't matter if they are in the same country or outside the country. I think we must do something with ourselves and open ourselves and open our minds. Because if you stay closed and you are not prepared and not willing to stretch out a hand by understanding somebody else. And it's not easy because many people are stuck with their opinions. I believe that, as said, we can make the efforts. As I brought it with the saying of Mother Teresa, the only thing I can do is to throw a stone on the water and to do my best, which I can, in order to promote the idea, principles, and beliefs for a better coexistence with someone else. But it doesn't work always. And we see it now, physically, that it doesn't work. Up till now. But who knows, maybe one day it will. I don't know if I answered the question.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was a great. Go ahead, Dita.
Well, I also think so because the way you described your answer is like we have gotten an alarm call for humanity to wake up and change. So there is hope, as you said. We do not lose hope.
And we can try to do what we can, to do the best we can in that direction. Not lose hope, but
thank you, Gideon, for being one of our featured speakers. We really appreciate your words today.
Thank you too for giving me the opportunity.
Just everyone, just to remind you that the survey will be on the right side of the screen.